Most of your audience are the hardest working people in this sport. I don't do a good enough job, I think, every week of going out and finding the supers, but I make it a point, and I have a little spotter board every week that I kind of do. I track, the birdies and pars of my guys. I've got little notes at the top of it, and every week on PGA Tour Radio, the very last note at the top of my board is who's the director of agronomy or golf course superintendent, whatever the title might be that week, how long they've been there, what their past has been, and I make it a point at some point in time during the broadcast to work that in. Some of the hardest working, most down-to-earth folks, and just appreciate what you guys do and what this entire space means to our sport.
Let's maintain that turf today. Get up and brush off the dew on that turf today. Turf today. Turf today. Cut it and roll that dew on that turf today. Turf today. Turf today. Set up, they about to come through on that turf today. Turf today. Turf today. Get up. Turf today. Get up. Turf today. Let's get out the way. Here comes first play. Let's maintain that turf today.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Turf Today, recorded on the Superintendent Network and brought to you, as always, by Toro. My name is Adam Kershane, joined by Brian Laurent, who carries the mail on this one. We have an awesome guest today, Mr. Will Haskett, who is a broadcaster on the PGA Radio and author of the book, The Science of Golf. Now, what's really cool about Will is he was actually old roommates of Brian. So these two just hit it off, go back and forth in this episode. Amazing, amazing quality. I'm not a huge part of this. I kind of play producer on this episode as I was running around doing a million different things, helping kids, a few different hats that day. But these two, it's awesome. So sink your teeth into this one. You're really, really going to enjoy it.
Awesome. Well, been looking forward to this one for a very long time. Well, appreciate you making the time to come on. We'll get into the backstory of you and I'm sure, here shortly. But just go ahead. We always like to kick things off with giving our guest an opportunity to do a little brief introduction of themselves. So tell us who you are, Will.
Yeah, so Will Haskett, mostly a really bad sports broadcaster that's lucked his way into some pretty good gigs in my life, but for the most part over the last dozen years have been calling golf, a majority of which on the PGA Tour, on PGA Tour Radio. I knew Brian in a previous life when we were just trying to make a paycheck out of college, and back then I was just kind of trying to get from basketball game to basketball game. But I think the weirdest thing is in the golf space, whenever people just ask me that sort of broad question, and again, I've broadcast major championships, predominantly on PGA Tour Radio, PGA Tour Live. I do a little bit of work here and there for the LPGA, college golf, that type of stuff. But I've broadcast 14 sports as a play-by-play announcer in my career through the years. And while I think right now I'm most recognizable as a golf guy over the last decade, just really a sports nerd at heart that was that crazy kid where when I was 13 years old, decided I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. And it's been a circuitous route to get to where I've been the last 10 or 12 years, I guess, in my career. But I wouldn't trade a lot of the ups and downs of it, and it's been great. So, yeah, we're recording this week, RBC Heritage Week, getting ready to be on the call for PGA Tour radio coverage coming up Thursday through Sunday, wherever you get your PGA Tour audio gold. But it's been it's been 20 plus years now of calling sports, actually 30 years now of calling sports at some level. I started when I was 15 years old in high school, and now here I am 30 years later, still calling sports. So I guess you can say the idiot 13-year-old me got what he wanted.
Yeah, and also an author.
I am. The book's somewhere around here. I should have.
I got it here.
To hold it
I got you covered.
A signed copy, I hope.
I do have a signed copy.
Oh, yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, The Science of Golf was really a labor of. I wouldn't say it was a labor of love. I had a podcast for 4 years, so always loved coming on a good podcast called the Perfect Number Podcast, and it was really just kind of diving into the geeky side of professional optimization, if you will, in golf. So, I mean, everything from psychology to, data and strokes gained, fitness, all of those things. And then the opportunity actually fell in my lap right after I ended the podcast. I was approached to write a book that they said, look, the title is just going to be The Science of Golf. give us a book. And I had so much, just content of great people in the industry, some of the greatest minds around the sport. And honestly, 75% of what's in that book you held up was sourced by audio files that I just downloaded from my podcast through the years. So it was really fun to do that, to exercise. I think if I wrote another book right now, I'd go a complete 180 and I'd do something, emotionally connective, not necessarily as nerdy as that book is, because I feel like I get typecast a little bit. And you've played golf with me, Brian. I am not a stat geeky guy in the golf course. I am feel it, dig it out of the dirt, reps. Like I have, the club has to look good and feel good. Everything else in between is just results oriented. But it's kind of funny that in covering the game, I've become this person who's sort of a numbers geek. But yeah, thanks for shouting out the book, The Science of Golf. Get it anywhere online books are sold.
It's a fantastic read. So I was digging through the grounds part of it here again over the weekend, get a little refresher prepping for this. So we'll dive into that there a little later. But like you said, got to know each other in a former life, collecting paychecks, then blowing said paychecks either on the golf course or at the casino. You did quite well though. I ended up losing, and I stayed on brand this weekend. I won 0 Masters bets this week.
Really?
0. Yes.
Oh,
I didn't have room.
top 10 cashed for me. I will say my outrights didn't do very good. One of the rare weeks, because I wasn't working, that I can legally gamble on golf. Xander was plus money for a top 10, and I know it wasn't the easiest top 10, but that was the only one that I think really cashed. I had a couple of guys that shot pretty bad numbers yesterday in the final round that cost me some top 30, top 40 parlays, but it's weird to not wager on golf for 2 months when I'm working pretty much every week and then try and rev it back up. I felt a little rusty last week trying to place lineups and major pools and all that fun stuff, but yeah, good to know that your gambling skills are still as sharp as they were at the blackjack tables in 2003 that lost.
They're so bad. It's so bad, Will. Oh my gosh. If I could have back all that money, I'd probably have a second house somewhere. It'd be fantastic. But,
but think about those stories. Yeah.
That's it. It's been a lot of fun.
On the golf course together. You and I were pretty good egg partners.
Yes, we were. So Will, take us through your journey in the game of golf. I know you kind of started in the bag room, but how did you really get wrapped into the game here?
Yeah, I mean, that was my only job as a kid. I was 13 years old looking for something to do to make a little bit of money. I laugh about it now. It's so hard to get our kids. I've got a 15-year-old and a 10-year-old. You and I share a lot of stories about fatherhood with our kids through the years. It's hard to get jobs now for a teenager. It seems like their schedules are so busy, and I don't remember being as busy as they were with extracurricular activities, and I thought I was a pretty busy guy, but I worked. I kind of fell in love with hustling and making money. And so you go from caddying and all the fun stories. I could do 2 hours of just silly stories of being a 13 to 18-year-old caddying in club championships and member guests and things like that at the club I grew up working at. And then, ended up in the bag room, and I worked for a legendary Hall of Fame professional in the Indiana section who didn't care about child labor laws. And we just worked all the time. I mean, and by the time I was the senior bag boy, I was making the schedule, and we did split tips. I always loved telling this story because I would make the schedule, and I knew if we had some high rollers playing that day, I wouldn't schedule the other kids to come in, and I didn't care how many bags piled up. Like, I was out there busting my butt because I was going to make 100% of that cash. And it was just, I don't know, I fell in love with so many of the little things of it, right? Like squeezing in 3 holes before the sun finally goes down after you've closed up the back room. How many putts and chips I hit by the light of the floodlight off the corner of the country club I worked at. And then, that really just sort of helped me become a halfway decent junior golfer that probably should have played in college, but I was so focused on the sports broadcasting dream that we talked about earlier. And it all came full circle. You and I worked together as assistant pros for 1 season together. I did that for 2 years, really as a stopgap to, make a little bit of money while I was chasing the broadcasting dream in the winter and other places. And when the opportunity came to broadcast golf. So the first golf tournament I ever broadcast was the 2008 men's and women's NCAA Division I golf championships. They needed to be streamed online. I was doing a lot of online streaming at the time, and I had this background as a club professional, a junior golfer, and somebody that's just been around the game, and it was sort of a natural fit as somebody who knew broadcasting sports and the internet and golf. And that was kind of the beginning. That was the catalyst. The right people saw me at that point in time. You get called up to the big leagues. Next thing you know, you're working a major. You meet some people there. Next thing you know, you're on the PGA Tour. And that's kind of the yada, yada, yada of the story. But it really goes back, and you get older, you get more sentimental, you reflect back on some of those years, and I just think of all of the things I learned, the people I met, the hustling as a bag boy, the tee sheets, the skin games that we ran, at the Hawthorne's Golf and Country Club, Ryan, and how much we skimmed off the top of that skins game pot that I tell the members about now. It's just like all the funny stories that I just tell that sort of are the beginning of life, I guess, in those formative
If it's an odd payout, what are you going to do?
Yeah, what are you going to do? There
you
was
can't
cash
pay
back in the day. There was no Venmo. There was no credit on the account.
Right.
If there was extra cash, it just went into the hands of the assistant.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's hard to pay out $37.50 per skin. There's no question.
Yeah, no. $30 skins, $15 to the guys behind the counter. That's easy money right there.
Intella360 is a fleet management tool created by Toro that enables superintendents to track equipment, view its operation status, operating hours and maintenance needs, as well as create work orders. And now, for 2026, you can order parts directly from the platform. Plus, you can build some shopping and wish lists to streamline operations across your entire staff. To learn more, visit toro.com/Intella360 for more details. Toro. Count on it.
So during your journey, you've obviously had some incredible highlights. And I think one of the things that I've heard you talk about most recently, I can't remember where it was, but just the opportunity to call first-time winners. And I know you've had a couple first-time winners recently. I think maybe the Bahamas last year was a first-time winner. And then, exactly. Yeah. An Indiana boy. That's right.
Bermuda.
Bermuda. Yeah. And then, Riviera, you got to call that one as well. How cool is it to be able to watch others fulfill their dreams as you're kind of fulfilling your dream here being a broadcaster?
Yeah, I will say I've done a pretty poor job in my career of being necessarily a relationship builder, right? Like I have a job to do. I show up to the tournament to do my job. The players have a job to do. The caddies have a job to do. We all show up and we work in the same ecosystem. I'm not paid to be a newsbreaker, so I don't have to be the guy that's, out there at the dinners and places, which probably to my detriment hasn't been great at times in my career. But I feel like some of those organic relationships that get developed is if you're there, you walk with the guy for the first time getting it done. The Adam Schenk story is a little bit different because he's an Indiana guy and lives down the road in Vincennes, and so I've gotten to know his family a little bit more just because there's not that many Indiana guys on the tour, so it's a little bit easier to kind of to make those sort of connections and have some of those shared experiences. But yeah, even a guy like Jacob Bridgman this year at the Genesis Invitational, he could be a star. He could win a major in the next couple of years. He could be a 10-time PGA Tour winner when it's all said and done. But I picked him up on Thursday in our radio coverage, and I never left him Friday through Sunday, and for the rest of his career, I'd like to think he's going to sort of remember that guy. My first winning call on PGA Tour Radio was in 2013. It was Harris English when he won whatever Memphis was called at the time, the FedEx St. Jude Classic, when it was steaming hot in June. And, I called some of Harris's golf in college. I don't have Harris English's phone number. I probably could get it if I really wanted to, but I feel like I can walk up to Harris English at any point in time during a practice round or on the range, and we could have just a nice casual conversation about things because we were sort of there together. So I love that sort of connection of doing it. And yeah, I've interviewed all the big guys, and I like to think that I get a nod from a Scotty Scheffler from now and then, like respecting the fact that I've been out there covering him a lot, but I mean, the man gets pulled in so many different directions. It's those sort of wins I feel are just the most special because not only do you get to form that connection that I think is a little bit more natural, but it's also those wins are typically the most human win that they're ever going to have. And it's the most connected we all sort of feel as humans together when they finally get it across the line or do it for the first time because it's that childhood dream that has come true. And so I think I think there's just a natural emotional connection that's a little bit easier to make in those first win moments. And if they become superstars, great. Like that's what the PGA Tour is hoping that it is, a springboard for a lot of those guys to have. But I don't know, the older I get and the sappier I get and the more sentimental I get, it's far more satisfying sometimes. I mean, the Gary Woodland story a couple weeks ago is, I think, even bigger than some of the other sentimental stories out there. But those become way more satisfying from my perspective to watch than even a guy winning a major like Rory did yesterday. And that may sound silly, but I mean, as a dad, as somebody goes through the ups and downs of life, I think we can connect even more with the Gary Woodland story, or Peter Malnati winning in Tampa a couple of years ago as a true sort of everyman type of guy, than sometimes the superstars who we really don't know what their lives are like. We don't know how to play golf at that level, and we certainly don't know how to live at that level. And the other guys that win, we can kind of, they're eating at the same Chipotle as I am, after we get off the air, after they get done playing. And those are kind of fun, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Those are great. That's why I love some of those shoulder season events, because those are life-changing moments for guys that are grinding to win their card, no question. What is something? Let me take a step back here. As you were talking, I was thinking, like, you get an assignment to cover the final group on Sunday or whatever it may be. How much are you thinking about, like, what you're going to say in that winning moment if you have the opportunity?
So I was with Ludwig Oberg this year at the Players Championship, and I won't lie to you. I had 3 different potential, like, play on word winning calls ready to go in the barrel, ready to fire if it happened. And I'm not going to out Jim Nance for anything. I think a lot of that, I think he has an idea of what he's going to say if it sort of goes the way that you expect. Now, if something crazy happens, you're not going to shoehorn in a line that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You have to react to the emotion of the moment. But if you get a tap in to win from the player itself, you kind of have an idea of where things are going to go. If you end up with a chip in hole out as a walk-off, you better not be looking at your script trying to get that ready. So yes, there are some things that you kind of plan to get it all right. And, we have some sponsor related or things that we are required to kind of work into calls, especially at the end of golf tournaments. And so because of that, you have to make sure that you're at least minding your P's and Q's and you don't get too imaginative or out of your own way to forget the things that you really need to make sure that you cover when it comes to sort of those winning moments. But yes, there are occasionally some calls that you've written things down. I won't share them because it didn't happen. My boy Oberg had a rough little stretch there at 11 and 12 on Sunday at the Players, and Cameron Young obviously took advantage of that one. And there I was standing in the 18th fairway listening to one of my colleagues get to call the winning putt of Cameron Young on the 18th green. So you prepare the best you can, but you also have to be really willing to move and go with the punches. This is a business about preparation, but it's also a business about being spontaneous. So figuring out where that line is. If you over prepare, then you lean on that too much and you're not able to instantaneously react with your instincts. If you rely only on your instincts, it can get a little bit sloppy sometimes to try and fill the dead space or to add the things that you need to be able to add. And finding that middle ground, I think, is sort of that sweet spot to being successful at what we do.
Being on radio coverage, not having like the benefit of obviously the audience being able to see what happens. I mean, how do you come up with all the different words? Because I mean, when I listen to you when I'm traveling and stuff, it's like I'm always blown away of how many different ways you can say the same thing. How challenging is it to come up with a variety of things to say, again, describing what's happening on the golf course?
I work with some of the best to ever do it. I mean, we've got Fred Albers, who I consider the dean of PGA Tour Radio, and he's been doing it for 20 plus years, and he's got so many funny little catchphrases that he'll work in once a day or once a week. Tom Wormy is a colleague of mine who can say more things about what grass divots and sand are doing in the air, to describe what just happened at contact that I would never even dream of sort of saying. I think it's really honestly to keep yourself entertained. I mean, if I'm saying the same thing over and over again, I'm going to bore myself. So again, it's a fine line, right? I'm not going to say a whole bunch of stuff that is, I guess, too creative, or it sounds like we're sort of forcing it. But at the same point in time, like, I don't want to get in this. I'm on the air 6, 7, sometimes 8 hours a day. I don't want to say the same 5 or 6 things in an hour. So I think it's a little bit of variety for myself and variety for the audience, because we recognize that you don't want to hear the same mundane things. And your energy has to shift too, right? There's a big difference between a guy making a 2.5-foot tap in on the easiest hole on the golf course for par and a guy making a 40-footer on the hardest hole on the golf course for birdie, right? You want to make sure that your energy is rising to the occasion or falling to whatever the moment might be out there. So I try not to get too clever. I'll let your listeners know, and because it looks like I'm going to have it again this year. I've been on the air the last 4 years calling golf the Saturday of the Kentucky Derby, which I think falls again this year on the weekend that I'm working. I think it's the week of the Miami Championship, and I'll be in Miami for that one. And I have made it a goal of mine to work in all 20 horse names into calls over the course of the round. And I went 20 for 20 last year, and there were some humdingers on that list to try and get creative. So Saturday this year at the Miami Championship, if you're around, and I probably will get in trouble for at least putting this out there because I try to keep it a little bit subtle, but the joke's kind of out at this point in time. I haven't even seen who the top horses might be, but I might be trying to work all 20 of those names into the broadcast over the course of 5 hours.
And that probably happens all the time. You hear the stories all the time where guys say their buddies like, "Oh, I bet you won't say X, Y, Z," and they always find. I mean, that's got to happen about every time you cover something, right? I'm sure Timbo or Kyle or someone's like, "Hey, work this in."
I get texts all the time, and some people are more creative than others about the words. And I've got plenty of colleagues, especially if it's Saturday or Sunday afternoon and you're doing, featured group, but the group is, both 2 over. And at the beginning of the day, it'll be a checklist. And somebody in production will come up with that list of like 10 words that you have to figure out a way to work in. And it's easy to work most words. And we're talking about inappropriate words. We're just talking about, silly everyday words that you wouldn't necessarily hear in a golf broadcast. And some people will shoehorn them in a little bit too aggressively. The real art form is, can you find a word and figure out a way to sort of make it happen? That, to me, is the art of the business, if it can happen. Then it leads to just a great dinner side table conversation that night. Like, whoa, how did you get that word in? Oh, you won't believe what happened. This guy was over here, and he had a pitch shot. He boned it over into the bunker, and it was a perfect opportunity. And it becomes more... This is really geeky stuff, Brian, because the audience just wants to know what's happening in the golf tournament. But you know what? Those of us that are doing 30 hours a week, sometimes it's about entertaining ourselves too.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're out there for, like you said, 6 to 8 hours a day. You got to do something to shake the tree a little bit. Do you have one that stands out?
I should have come prepared for this one.
That's okay.
I mean, all the horses last year, I'd have to go back and look up some of it. But there was... there was a horse last year that had 3 words in it, right?
Yeah.
Like so-and-so the first or something. And what I ended up doing on a couple of these long horse names is that if they were compound words, I would figure out a way to end a sentence with one half of the word, pause, and then continue with that word on the other side so that it made sort of sense. And that was where you had to get really creative because it's like there's no way anybody's going to know this. I mean, one of the horses a couple of years ago was like Colombian Mine or something like that, and there was a hole. It was at the CJ Cup Byron Nelson, which is at TPC Craig Ranch, and there's this one area on the 9th hole where there's this huge drop down into this creek, and it's a stone wall lined area. And I'm like, man, if someone can just hit it down there, it looks like a mine. I can work this in. I was like, and so I'm begging my group, like, someone please just snap hook this tee shot into this thing so I can work this. I'm not really wishing bad swings on golfers, but they didn't. But I was standing above it, and they tossed to me, and the guy backed off of his golf shot. So now I've got to fill for 15, 20 seconds. And I'm like, Yahtzee. I mean, this is the greatest opportunity because now I could say, oh, my gosh, what an incredible, beautiful hole. You pan over here, you've got this water feature, you have to cross the bridge twice, and I'm telling you what, it's carved this deep ravine down there. Reminds me of a Colombian mine or whatever the actual word sort of was. It was some South American country, and I think mine was in there. And those are the ones that stand out because they're so silly. And then of course my producer will be like, very descriptive there. Was that a horse? I'm like, yeah, that was a horse. But my favorite moment of last year, Brian, though, is I said something, I can't remember what the word was, and my producer comes in my ear and he goes, horse name, right? And I go, no, that actually wasn't. Whatever the word was I just said was just me calling golf out here. So I think that to me was as awesome of an experience as actually getting them all in, was someone didn't actually know if it was or wasn't, knowing what was going on.
Adam just sent me the list of the horses. You're going to have some good ones. You're going to have some good ones. Yeah, for this year. Okay. Golden Tempo, that one's going to be a piece of cake.
Super easy.
Yeah, Class President, that one's not too bad. Let's see what the Puma. I mean, got plenty of guys wearing Puma out there. Commandment, Renegade, Incredibolt. That one could be tough.
Incredibolt. Oh, that's simple.
Incredibolt. Yeah.
He just piped one 330 down the fairway in an Incredibolt of a drive out of Rory McIlroy.
Yeah, these are, you're gonna have these aren't going to be that hard for you. This list is 6-speed, Wonder Dean. Yeah, no, not too bad. You'll be good.
You're making my job already easier.
That's great. You're in good shape.
We are back with another Ask the Agronomist segment today featuring Dr. Tony Goldsby from the Andersons. Our question comes in from Will Ferrari. Best method for controlling equisetum, or horsetails, as we like to call them.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on the show again this week, Adam, and thanks, Will, for sending in the great question. Equisetum or horsetail, as it's known, is obviously one of those weeds that really humbles all of us because there's just not really a good one-size-fits-all true shot fix out there. And really, the key start is understanding why it's there in the first place. And a little bit more about horsetail is it really loves to thrive in that wet, poorly drained, often acidic soil. So the first step is really trying to correct that environment and improve your drainage, and fix that issue, reduce your chronic moisture, and then always, if you have, issues with, competition, you want to get that healthy turf, getting in there and obviously trying to do its part to help take the horsetail itself out, with competition. From a control perspective, there are, physical tools that can help certainly slow it down a little bit, just constantly mowing it. Obviously, the horsetail itself has a really deep rhizotomous system. So over time, if you're constantly exhausting that, it takes a lot of seasons, but that does help to kind of keep you ahead of it. A lot of folks, look for chemical applications, and there are suppression methods that will work, but unfortunately, it has a really waxy stem, and it also makes it very difficult from a timing perspective to hit it when the growth is tender and at the right time. And again, a lot of times you're working in a pond edge or some sort of water adjacent site as well too. So, you have to always deal with, whatever aquatic label type products that you can in those types of scenarios. So I would say overall, from my perspective, dealing with it is probably, again, don't chase the symptom if you can help it. Try to fix the wet site conditions, right, with drainage overall, because that's what's going to keep your horsetail winning over time. And if you can really get that site back in spec, it's probably going to be a long way in addition to trying to use some sort of chemical control if you need to.
Love it. A lot of really good information in there. And I like how we're getting some specific questions too. That's one we don't hear all the time. I think they're starting to test you here, Tony. It's good.
There you go.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we'll see you next week here, Tony. This wraps up another Ask the Agronomist segment featuring Dr. Tony Goldsby from the Andersons.
So of all the events, you've been to a ton of events. Is there anything that kind of stand out? Do you have a favorite place to visit? I know I see at the Memorial pretty much every year.
Rocking it today.
I saw that.
Rocking the Memorial gear today. I won't be there this year. Didn't work out in the schedule, so it'll be a rare time missing it for me here in 2026. It's almost, it pretty much is a borderline perfect golf tournament. I shouldn't have said borderline. It's a perfect golf tournament. It's a perfect test for the world's best. You know what Jack says to Chad to do to that golf course gets done, and then they just make it as hard as humanly possible for those guys. And everything from the fan experience to the quality of field to the quality of golf course is really good. My favorite course on tour is probably Riviera, and I got to go back there this year for the first time in a long time. It's just without really any major trouble on it. It's just a good, solid ball striking golf course with some tricky little greens. The Players Championship is almost a perfect golf tournament in many respects, just because of the familiarity, the finish, how good Sawgrass plays, how fair I think of a test it is to golfers. Every golf tournament on tour has its own, sort of, I guess, draw. And I'm not going to sit here and say what my least favorite tournaments are on the PGA Tour, but so many of them have just great, own sort of unique characteristics. And so, as a Midwesterner, I love going to Memorial every year to begin the year because you get a great field. You see a golf course that sort of feels like unattainable, right, to the common person. Like it's stepping back on the back tees just doesn't seem like a real golf course that any human could actually play. And then you fast forward a couple of weeks and say you're up in Detroit, and a lot of history at Country Club of Detroit, but that feels like a golf course that you and I could walk out there right now. It's like, oh, I might be able to put up a number here today. Just got to drive it in between the trees and keep it underneath the hole, and I might be able to do something. And I love that sort of back and forth sometimes on the PGA Tour. And then, I always shout out my friends up at the John Deere Classic. It's a great piece of property. I wish we could play TPC Deer Run in October or play it in, early spring when it could be a little bit firmer and faster and not in July. But they embrace their spot. They embrace offering young players an opportunity to get a chance chance. And if you look at the history of that golf tournament, it's been a springboard for a lot of big names in professional golf. And I think that's really important in the current professional golf ecosystem. So that's a long way of me not answering your question. But
No.
whenever I think it stands out, Riviera is my favorite course. The Players is one of my favorite tournaments, and I always say the Players and Memorial together are probably my two favorite tournaments on tour. I do have to shout out the folks at the Western Golf Association, the BMW Championship every year. They go to golf-starved areas. They go to great golf courses, and there's always tens of thousands of people. It's a really, really fun tournament to follow every year.
That is a great event. I was out there at Caves last year for it. They did a great job. So in all your time being around golf courses, then obviously we're a turf podcast, so let's talk a little bit of turf. As you're writing the book, what did you learn that surprised you about golf course maintenance?
I think the art form, the fine line that the best professionals in the world will walk up to try and challenge the best, the experimentation, I think, is a big part of it. Learning so much of how much engineering there is behind the scenes to make new grasses. The idea of paspalum even existing as a viable turf option in golf course architecture 50 years ago, was kind of a crazy idea. Now all of a sudden you're looking at ways to bring in saltwater resistant turf to a lot of coastal areas to be able to do things. When I first went to Florida was 35 years ago probably to play golf and saw Bermuda grass for the first time in my life. And I was like, what is this weed? I never want to see this ever again. Whether I'm chipping out of it, whether I'm putting on it, like the heck with this. This is a nasty grass. Like this should never be on a golf course ever again. And now you look at the advancement of it as a turf on greens, and they're the best greens. I'm going to say this and I'm going to get in trouble because bent grass is the best grass to ever putt on. But really good now, modern engineered Bermuda is the best grass to create sustainable long-term putting surfaces. And you'll see it on the PGA Tour all the time. And I mean, it's getting warmer and warmer up here in the north. I'm looking out my window right now. I can see Bermuda grass that is bleeding into my Kentucky bluegrass, which is crazy to think in the middle of Indiana that it could be around. And I always wonder how viable it might be 10, 15 years from now as they continue to find strands, because it gets really hard up here in the north, as you know, Brian, to create firm and fast putting surfaces in June, July, and August in the Midwest. And I love what they can do with bent grass if you have the money to do it, but we recognize that that's a problem and a resource issue. So I think, just all of the various engineering ways and experimentation that agronomy in the last 20, 30 years has changed to create more playable conditions, tougher playing conditions, all of those things to me is just so impressive. And I'll never forget, you invited me to a couple of conferences years and years and years ago, and I spent an hour talking to a sand vendor, and I had no idea how sand could be engineered. And that to me is just fascinating about, whether it's a round granule versus a jagged granule and how those individual micro granules fit into one another and how different it makes the playing surfaces or the playing of those bunker shots. It's I know it's not very specific, but just the engineering is incredible. Because you think of it, it's just like, how low can they cut it and keep it watered and not dying? And that's not at all the science. Like the science behind it is so much behind the scenes to create these things that make the jobs easier out there and make the playing surfaces better.
So you mentioned earlier too that you've kind of gotten the reputation as the data guy. And this is really what I was curious of talking to you about was when it comes to playing conditions, course setup, it seems like there's no way to challenge these tour players anymore. In your research and your tracking stats and data, what do you think is the biggest thing that superintendents can do to challenge the best players in the world? What are the setups that you see as creating the most challenge for these guys from a stats and data perspective?
Wind machines. If you can just make it blow 15 to 25 every day, then you'll be fine. I don't know. It's a great question. I don't want this to become a roll the ball back debate. I just feel like that's where we're almost at an impasse in terms of how people view it. I thought this past weekend was a really interesting case study in what do you want your golf tournament to look like. Because for the first time in a while, Augusta National had full control of that golf course from beginning all the way to end. And it blew a little bit more yesterday than I think the players thought in the back nine, but you could see it on the TV. Like, that place was starting to get purple in some spots.
Oh, yeah.
So they walked it up to whatever edge they wanted to walk it up to, but they kind of dialed it back on Friday and Saturday. And, they put some water here and there. It played softer. The players didn't anticipate it to play as soft as it did. Scotty Scheffler sort of referred to that yesterday when he was done, is that he was kind of surprised and maybe thought that it would have been a little bit tougher, and that obviously plays into his hands. He would like it to be as tough as humanly possible because then he'd win. And but does that make it enjoyable? How many times a year do we want even par to be a good score? If we rolled the ball back and everything was firmer and faster, would it be a good product? Majors or PGA Tour, it doesn't matter. If 10 times a year even par is your winning score, I'm not really sure that's a good entertainment product either. So if you look at the winning score the last 5 years of the Masters, it's been about the same. It's been 10, 11, 12 under par. I think they found their sweet spot, and they're kind of tweaking the dials every year to make sure that they have that opportunity. They get to that. So I guess to answer your question, it's wind is the ultimate leader to scoring. If it's super soft and it's windy, it's going to be easier than if it's firm and fast. But you have to have wind to really challenge the best players in the world. I think something that we're starting to learn more about when it comes to data is that rough doesn't necessarily offer the same challenge, or should I say an equitable challenge on a golf course as, say, having more mowed down areas and tighter surfaces around the greens. You really put a premium on ball striking and hitting greens, or short game once you miss a green, then I think you start to see a balancing act in that one. So from an agronomy standpoint, I think the data has sort of shown that pinching the fairways and growing the rough 6 inches tall doesn't do a whole lot to punish those guys that are missing fairways and hitting it a long way. Because Winged Foot, I think, was the greatest example of that. Bryson DeChambeau at his fastest and strongest, playing really good golf. I think Brendan Todd was near the top of that leaderboard at the end of the week, which he was the straightest golfer. So you had the longest driver on planet Earth with probably the straightest hitter on planet Earth, and they were near the top of the leaderboard. And could Brendan Todd have won that U.S. Open? I guess, maybe. But how many times Bryson would have 40 extra yards or 60 yards more than he would, and Brendan's still going to miss 4 fairways around. And if Bryson misses 1 more fairway or 2 more fairways, but he's hitting wedge out of that rough as opposed to the 6-iron that Brendan Todd has to hit from that rough, then all of a sudden that benefit of hitting 2 extra fairways is neutralized in terms of Bryson. And then if he missed a green just off the edge, he has the strength to hit a flop shot out of the cabbage that's tall. So I think finding ways to really add slope and shave some areas around greens and get away from the rough, and maybe it looks into it as a gradual rough, or maybe it's the fairways start to narrow at the longer sort of distances off the tees. I think those are the ways that we're looking to try and create an equitable but still firm test for these players out there. But I think we've seen that philosophy change a little bit over the last couple of years. I don't think we're going to have as many setups that are going to be, hey, let's just grow the rough 6 inches and pinch the fairways into 20 yards and then figure this out, because it's just going to be bombs away, because now data has shown us that in that situation, the guys are going to miss the fairway at about an equitable amount, or whatever that difference isn't going to be enough to be that big of a factor. Although if Rory had driven it the way he did on Thursday and Friday at a U.S. Open setup, he probably misses the cut, but that's a different conversation for a different time.
How much do you think is length overrated? I mean, you mentioned Riviera being one of your favorite golf courses. Number 10 obviously comes to mind.
Yeah.
And, it's a drivable hole, but it gives guys fits. Do you think length is something that's overrated in golf and not enough strategy?
Sure. It just depends on the hole, right? It depends on where you have to hit it with that length off the tee. I guess I'll answer that question in a different way, is that no matter what we do to the golf courses, no matter what we do to the golf ball, if you look back historically, length has always mattered. So, Greg Norman was the longest player of his era, or at least swung the hardest. I'm not going to say he was the absolute longest player in his era, but he was pretty stinking long. Jack Nicklaus was pretty stinking long by the standards of the 60s and the 70s. Seve Ballesteros, great short game, swung out of his shoes and still sent it sort of down there. So golf, yes, has had some great champions that don't hit it very far, and I think that's what people are hoping to try and get back to, is that you can have this balance of somebody who really sends it versus, a Tom Kite, My boy Jeff Sluman, some of these guys that just really couldn't pound it out there that found a way to win major championships. And every now and then you'll have a Zach Johnson in a generation, or I'm trying to think of the modern equivalent of somebody who doesn't really move it incredibly far. But even like a Matt Fitzpatrick, who was below average in distance, chased distance and got super fast and super long, or long by his below average standards before, because he just recognized the statistical advantage. You and I go out and play golf tomorrow. If I hit it 10 yards past you on every shot, I'm at a statistical advantage. So length is always going to matter. And I think because the ball goes so far and it doesn't spin as much anymore, we don't do as good enough a job recognizing that length always played a factor, that being longer was always more helpful. The question is now, can we shorten the gap, I guess, between how much of an advantage that is versus the guys that don't hit it very far? Brian Campbell won twice last year in the PGA Tour, and he has my ball speed or my club head speed. The only guy. My guy, Brian Campbell. You
have a statistical advantage over me anytime we just step out to the first tee. There's no question. You have a good golf game these days. Mine is no bueno. But well. Yeah. So just talk about what it's like kind of behind the scenes on tour, and again, being a turf podcast, is there a lot of conversation with the players about setup, conditions, those types of things on a week-to-week basis?
I always try to find 2 or 3 players on Wednesday to talk to. Just be like, hey, how's the course? How's it set up from last year? Weather forecast has so much to do with it, right? We know if it's going to get hot, if we're going to get water. So where things kind of are, how the rough is set up from previous years. I feel like on the tour, we've seen the last couple of years some stops that we've added a half an inch or an inch to the rough here or there to try and mute a little bit of the scoring in some places, especially in the Florida swing, which has gotten really hard for these guys for all 4 stops if they choose to play all 4 or can get into all 4 of those events. But yeah, there's always good conversation about it. There's always, a gripe here or there about this level of setup or if things have gotten too easy or too unfair, but it really just kind of boils down to what type of player that is. It should be no surprise that Scotty Scheffler says, I wish that it had gotten a little bit firmer and faster, because when you can control your irons the way that he can, you're at a sizable advantage the more firm and the more fast those greens get for him out there. And for guys that maybe are great putters, they would love the fairways to chase, but the greens to have a little bit of hold, because they're going to be coming in with different, launch angles and everything, and they want to give themselves an opportunity to put their best club in their hands. But yeah, I think everybody's feeling out a golf course early in the week. And that to me is always sort of fascinating, is where is the golf course? Where do we think it can go? What are the subtle changes that have been made from year to year? I haven't done a really good job of going back and looking at data and how the stats sort of break down, because I think a lot of times we don't do a good job of what was the weather that week. Did the week start cool and end up hot? Did it start hot, end up cool? When did the rain come in? Did we ever get any rain? I think a great example of that is the BMW Championship has been at Olympia Fields, which hosted a U.S. Open Southside of Chicago a couple of times. And in the year of the pandemic, it was DJ versus John Rahm in a playoff. They made 2 unbelievable putts on the 18th green, one in regulation, and I think it was Rahm's to win it in overtime. And I think the winning score, they got to a playoff at 2 or 3 or 4 under. And it was one of those Midwest setups in August that was perfect, right? It got cool at night, but it hadn't rained for like 8 days. And we showed up and it's like, oh, they can do anything they want to this golf course because the bent grass isn't stressed because it's not getting too hot during the day, but it hasn't gotten water in a week. So they have full control over it. That place was like playing on a tarmac. It was so hard and so firm. And then we were back there, a couple of years ago, and I was there, and I can't even remember who won that golf tournament now off the top of my head. But it rained, and it was warm during the week, and the winning score was in the mid-teens, I think, when we finally got back there. I go, this is the same exact golf course, same world-class players, and just that all of that chemistry and weather conditions all put into a little petri dish leads to a completely different golf course. And people will say, like, oh, the setup's too easy. It's like, well, it was the exact same setup 4 years ago, just the weather cooperated. And I think that's what always gets kind of interesting to me when it comes to, people, oh, what's the setup going to be? Like, we're really at the mercy every week. 90% of course setup is going to be dictated by the weather leading in, the weather during the week.
Yeah, Mother Nature is undefeated. There's no question. Yeah. Do they ever call you into the meteorology tent to be a guest meteorologist?
Yes. Well, no, I have to go get interviews with the meteorologist. So like Stewart and Wade and Kyle and all these guys that are out there every week on the PGA Tour, it's one of those guys. And they know if they see me coming that I'm going to ask like 2 questions before I record the interview and like 3 questions after, because Brian will tell everybody I am a weather geek. If I had to do it all over again, I'd probably be a weatherman, not a sports announcer. I have easily $100 worth of apps on my phone. Like I'm talking subscriptions, $100 a year to apps. I'm looking at rotation, hail size, cold front, warm fronts, how things are converging, barometric pressures. I love it all. So anytime we're in a little bit of a weather delay, I was like, oh, where's the system going? Like, where's the energy cooking from? Like, what's going to happen today? I love my interaction with my meteorologists on tour. They're the best.
Do they always go to you when it's time to talk weather on the radio?
No, I think people know that I've got a better idea, and I'm going to throw somebody on the bus here, because the running joke on our PGA Tour radio team was a couple of years ago. It was the Honda Classic. I think it was still the Honda, so before it became the Cognizant, and it was when Sepp Straka broke through and won for the first time on the PGA Tour. And that day in dining, before we go out to work, I asked my colleague Doug Bell, and Doug will sit here and he'll laugh along with this story. Our engineer comes in and says, hey guys, do you want the umbrellas today? And I had seen the PGA Tour weather forecast, and there was a 20% chance that we could get a little pop-up late in the day. But Doug pulls out his weather app, and when I say weather app, it's like the actual app that just says weather. You know, like nothing.
The built-in iPhone.
Exactly right. Yeah. And then he looked at the hourly on that one. He's like, nope, not going to rain today. Don't worry, we don't need the umbrellas. I was like, I think we should probably take them. Well, I get sort of vetoed out. We don't take the umbrellas. And sure enough, you can see the skies coming late in that round. And Shane Lowry famously lost by 1 because he had to hit his tee shot in 18 into a downpour. I mean, it was pouring down rain. And Straka had hit kind of before the downpour started, and then when he was staying in the fairway, there was a little bit of a lull, and he hit his second shot onto the green. And we actually had the ball speed data from those 2 tee shots. And Straka and Lowry hit both of their tee shots off the tee with about the same club head speed and ball speed. And Lowry's went 30 yards shorter because of the amount of rain that was coming out of the air at the time. And I'm standing on the forward tee box watching this tee shot. And I look over, and Roger Maltby, I think it might have been the last year that Roger Maltby was working for NBC full-time. And I look over, and I am just getting annihilated by rain. No umbrella. Doug, by the way, is done. He's in scoring, so he's not even getting wet, because I'm with the last group on the golf course. And I look over, and Maltby's under his umbrella. Like, I think he's probably smoking a cig. And he just, looks over at me, and he gives me the, where the hell is your umbrella, kid? And I'm like, Roger, not now. Not now. I'm not in the mood to have this conversation. I don't want to tell you where it is. So that's the running joke, is that anytime the skies start to threaten on PGA Tour Radio, we say, well, what does Doug's app say? Because that's the go-to on that one. But never again on PGA Tour Radio is anybody taking weather advice unless it goes through this guy first. That's the rule now. Should have taken the damn umbrellas.
Yeah, I love it. You were the only guy, when we get those phone calls in the pro shop, guys calling us from 2 holes over. Here, just talk to Will. He'll tell you about the weather. It's fine.
Yeah. I love it. When we were working there, we had one spring where we had it was like a train setup, like a stationary front setup over Indianapolis, and it just was trains of storms for 3 straight days. And we canoed down the 5th fairway of the club that we were working in. It rained so hard. That setup, I always reminded of that one, because I don't think I've ever seen it rain that much in a 2-day period of time. Our golf course was shut down for a week.
Oh yeah, I remember I think wasn't the practice green basically turned into an island green there? I mean, all of 18 was flooded over. I mowed it. Yeah,
you went and got a mower and you went and mowed it, and it was the only thing we could do was have putting competitions on the practice putting green. That's right.
And I remember that. I've got that picture sitting around somewhere. I love it.
Before we go any further, I want to talk to you guys about Bloom Golf Partners. And finding great leaders in golf isn't getting any easier. But what if you could build them yourself? The Bloom Golf Partners Apprenticeship Program is a fully structured, 2-year training program designed to develop the next generation of golf course leaders right inside your operation. From turf management and irrigation to leadership and team culture, apprentices gain real-world experience while you build a stronger, more reliable team. Plus, with the built-in recruitment support and access to finding opportunities, it's a smarter, more sustainable way to grow your staff. If you're ready to stop searching and start developing talent, check out Bloom Golf Partners and their golf course management apprenticeship program today.
So, all right, all your time calling golf, favorite memory?
Oh, man. There's been so many really cool shots and cool moments. I cut my teeth in this business calling golf, doing those NCAA championships. And so from 2008 to 2013, I was able to do the men's championship, one more year for the ladies in 2014. And even though I'm closer in age to Phil Mickelson, I feel like I'm more connected to the Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas sort of class in the world because I was calling them as college students while I was still sort of this guy trying to prove himself as a golf broadcaster. So I'll always sort of consider myself the young guy like they are on tour. And honestly, right now, they kind of feel like they're getting a little bit older, too. We got 4 babies between them, a back surgery. I mean, life comes at you fast between those two. But, calling their NCAA championship at Riviera, that was in 2012. And then being able to be there, and I was at Jordan Spieth's Masters win in 2015. So that was kind of one of my bigger moments was – being able to call. I think he birdied the first hole. I called that. I think he birdied the 8th hole. I called that, working for the national feed of the radio call. So I think that to me is still sort of the pinch me sort of moment. Like I've arrived, and here's this guy that I've known since he was 16 years old as sort of a wonderkin, and he wins in sort of that epic fashion in 2015. That to me is still sort of the greatest overall sort of moment that I've been a part of. I think there have been far more exciting 30-second, oh my gosh, that just happened, or that guy just holed that shot that I could probably go back in the memory banks to. But, if that was the top of the mountain and I'm still able to do this for another 20 years, it's still a pretty good top of the mountain to have kind of come up with those young guys and then see it come through and all that promise showcased when he broke through and won that first major in 2015 was pretty special.
Yeah, and you and you were in the very beginning of Full Swing. When you called those guys in college, I immediately texted you. I turned it on, and the first episode, within like 2 minutes, I hear your voice. I'm like, Will, that was totally just you, right? Like, yeah, I didn't know anything about it.
No royalties for that. Chad,
it's unreal.
Come on, where are my royalties, Chad? Come on, let's go.
Unreal. That was cool. So, and you probably called those guys at the event down in Texas when they were in high school, right?
Oh yeah, the Spirit.
Yeah.
So it's an international amateur tournament. I will be emceeing the opening banquet there coming up in November. So it's that'll be my 7th or 8th Spirit at Whispering Pines, which is an absolutely perfect piece of property north of Houston if you ever want to try and squeeze your way into a nice golf course. I'm not sure if they're letting anybody in the public in, but make a couple phone calls. Never know what might happen for you.
Yeah. I was doing some research for our Pinehurst area trip a couple of weeks ago and Googled Whispering Pines, and that's the one that kept coming up. Man, that'd be nice if we could work that into the rotation, but definitely not.
Let me know. So, I'll go with you. I could probably get us on if you want to go.
I was going to say, yeah, you got that. You've got that connection, so that would be a great trip. But cool. Well, this has been awesome, Will. We always like to wrap these up by giving our guest a little bit of time if there's anything you want to talk about.
Oh, wow. I mean, is this worldview, or we want to stick to golf?
Anything, whatever you want, my man.
I don't want to lose friends here. No, I really appreciate the time. I know most of your audience are the hardest working people in this sport. I don't do a good enough job, I think, every week of going out and finding the supers, but I make it a point, and I have a little spotter board every week that I kind of do. I track, the birdies and pars of my guys. I've got little notes at the top of it, and every week on PGA Tour Radio, the very last note at the top of my board is who's the director of agronomy or golf course superintendent, whatever the title might be that week, how long they've been there, what their past has been, and I make it a point at some point in time during the broadcast to work that in because these properties I get to walk every week for a living are some of the most immaculately maintained pieces of grass on planet Earth, and it's a testament to what y'all do. I'm currently in a bit of a war with my superintendent at my club because we've added too much sand to some of the bunkers, but I think it's a work in progress, so I'm going to let it simmer a little bit because I have so much respect for the industry. I know I'm going to be patient. I'm not going to be that member yet to raise a fuss or raise a stink. But no, I appreciate everything that everybody does. It's some of the hardest working, most down-to-earth folks, and just appreciate what you guys do and what this entire space means to our sport.
That's awesome. Hi, Adam.
How's it going, boys?
Look at that. Is this hour 2? Is this Brian leave and then I stay and we do another hour of this?
I got my daughter in the seat right now. She's got a snack in her hand, so just wanted to jump on for a couple minutes. I've been trying to listen in. It was so cool getting to hear, obviously Brian does a great job kind of directing things, but Will, working on the radio, getting to do something like this and having a background in podcasting, like it's such a clean interview and getting to so much information in, 45 minutes, an hour. It's really cool. I have so much respect for, a radio broadcaster. Grew up listening to the sports radio a ton myself, so it's not like anybody can do TV broadcasting, but I think, there's so much more description and painting a picture in what you do on the radio. So shout out to what you do, man.
Oh, appreciate that. It's a lot of hot air, but sometimes the content is
a lot of hot air, yeah.
A lot of fill time, I got to fill some time sometimes. But no, I appreciate and I admire the success that you guys have had joining forces, and you put up with Brian. So, I mean, we were roommates together there for a couple of years and have too many
I saved you from a wolf spider.
Oh, my gosh.
Don't ever forget that. I saved you from a wolf spider.
Living with you those years completely cured my arachnophobia because we were infested. That condo was infested.
It was terrible.
I had to learn to live with it.
And we're talking like this big.
These things are massive.
No.
In the laundry, like on my pillow. It didn't matter. They were all
crazy.
Over that house. I drive by that condo. I don't live that far away from where we were roommates. I drive by that condo all the time. I think about those spiders every time I go down that road.
I will never forget. I thought someone was like hiding in your closet with a knife or something, the way you screamed.
It was on my pillow. I'm going in my room. It's just sitting there, like taking a nap on my pillow.
Then we got the roll of paper towels, and it jumped onto the roll of paper towels.
Yeah, there were some girlish screams there, that's for sure.
We had some good times.
I bet you will have some good stories of Brian we can't really share on the podcast, but
no, way too many of those.
If we ever cross paths, we'll definitely have to get into that.
Most of those I don't remember, so it's a good thing. Awesome. Well, this has been great. Appreciate you coming on here and doing this for us, and hopefully we'll connect. What's your schedule like for the rest of the season?
Oh, let's see. I will be PGA Tour Radio coverage this week at the RBC Heritage, so we'll see how that signature event plays out. I actually haven't looked at the weather forecast yet, so that's a bogey on me, 2 o'clock on a Monday afternoon here recording this, and I haven't hopped on it yet. And then off a week, and we'll see what Trump Doral looks like in Miami.
That's right. Yeah.
A little bit warm down there for that signature event. For PGA Tour Radio, and then feature group coverage for ESPN of the PGA Championship. Really excited. Again, I really hope the weather cooperates for Aronimink. I was there for the BMW Championship that Keegan won, and that's been probably 7-8 years. And that was one of those weird weather weeks. It was 90 and blowing on Wednesday, and that place was brown and great. And by Sunday, it rained 5 inches. We had a Monday finish in mud. It's just an incredible sort of yin-yang of how you can play a golf tournament, like firm and fast one day, and then just point, click, and target practice for the final day. And I hope that we get really good weather, because that's another one of those venues with the move of the PGA Championship into May, is if you can avoid the big dumping storms, this is the time of year to let that bluegrass cook and let those bent grass greens really hum. So I hope we get it for the PGA coming up.
I'll be there next week. I'm excited to see where they're at.
What they did to it, even before they played it 7 or 8 years ago and cleared it out. I played it on simulator a couple of months ago, and I forgot about how good some of the par 3 setups are. There's some really good little complexes there, so I'm excited to get back to Philly and see it.
Nice. So you're going to be on the grounds for that?
I'll be there.
Nice.
16,000 other members of the media will be on the site for that one.
Good stuff, buddy. All right. Well, hopefully
Adam,
likewise, man.
Duty out of you today, boss. Nice
man,
work.
I'm so sorry about not being a part of it, but it was great to listen to everything. Great to finally get to meet you, and it should be a good episode. There was so much good stuff in there. It was
awesome.
It's going to be different for our listeners, but I think just people that enjoy golf or had a lot of questions about some of the behind the scenes stuff. I think it's going to be really cool. Yeah,
anytime you guys need me, just let me know. Hell, I got to tell you the one, so I have some time here.
Uh-oh.
No, I'm not doing a thing on you. I was going to do we're doing all the Kentucky Derby horses.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, here's one last year. So there was a horse last year called Burnham Square. I'm assuming it's Burnham and then Square, Burnham Square. I don't know if that's some sort of geographic reference or something. I'm like, how am I going to do that? And so I think I had Ricky Castillo in the final round, and he bogeys a really easy hole on the front 9. And I think my line went, well, you don't want to make too many bogeys on easy holes today, but it looks like Castillo it's going to be the 5th hole where he's going to have to burn them. Square on the card, he falls back to like 8 under par. So I used it as burn him and then pause, square on the card, and that one was like one of the trickier ones that I had to figure out a way to work in.
That's impressive.
That is
impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, he drops a long putt. It could have been, he made that one from Burnham Square, or there's options.
Like Baeza. I don't even know where that is. Baeza. I don't know how I worked that one in. I don't
know. This one. You're not going to have too many issues with this one. This one sets up actually really well for you, Will.
I'm down. I'm ready to go.
Yeah. All right, bud.
All right, boys.
Thanks for your time. We'll chat soon.
My pleasure.
Take care,
man. We'll see you.
Thanks so much, man.
See you.
When early season weed pressure starts building, GrassGuard DG from the Andersons gives you a smarter, more efficient way to respond. Formulated with a corn gluten meal, it delivers natural pre-emergent weed suppression while providing slow-release nitrogen to support steady turf growth. GrassGuard DG offers improved efficacy at lower use rates compared to traditional corn gluten meal products. In crabgrass control trials, it outperformed competing corn gluten formulations by 17 to 33%. That means stronger results with greater efficiency for your program. For natural weed suppression backed by performance data, visit andersonspro.com to learn more about GrassGuard DG. That's going to do it for us today. Really hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Will and Brian were fantastic, as always. Yep, there's my word. So, wanted to shout out a few different people here. We were going to announce the 3 winners of the giveaway for Standard, but only 2 people have reached out. The 2nd and 3rd place winner both reached out. So, whoever is running the account for Jacket or Bust, that would be a good time to send us a message. Not too sure who that was, but if you know somebody who was playing in the Masters Fantasy and won, get them to reach out to us. There's got to be a better way we can do this next year, maybe with email addresses or something like that. But the way the Masters app is done, you basically just enter a screen name and that's your name. So the 2 people that were 2nd and 3rd place have both reached out. They're very excited about getting their coolers, but the number 1 winner, where are you? We've put it out there till the 27th. So let us know by the end of the week and we'll get you your prize. We got to get these coolers sent out. We got to get them out of my office. And we got some other really cool giveaways coming too. So from Brian, myself, everybody that works with us, everybody that works for us, we all say thank you. We will see you next week for another fun one. We got a great superintendent for next week. Keep them sharp, everybody.